Customer centricity and rapid innovation are the key to success, at least in my opinion, for EG Group. And we're delighted to be featuring them today on Shop Talk Live, along with Shopworks and NCR as well. Now, as many people will have noticed in recent months, EG Group have opened their new headquarters in Blackburn. It's a global shared service centre, and located in their home of Blackburn at Waterside. And it's, as you can see, highly impressive architecturally, makes a big statement. And we were supposed to be there today doing an outside broadcast. And as is the case with things as they are, although we had started the filming for today's outside broadcast, and I think we'll show a clip of some of the filming that we did last week. One of the film crew, key member, one of his relatives came down with COVID, and therefore we had to have social distancing, self-isolation in place for him. He wasn't able to make it, and hence we're back to virtual rather than doing a live outside broadcast at EG Group. So I'm back here in the studio, Shop Talk Live studio in our offices, rather than with Ilyas Munshi in EG Group. But let me welcome him to the program. Ilyas, Group Commercial Director at EG Group, of course. Welcome to Shop Talk Live.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for inviting me onto the show.
Great.
It's a shame we couldn't make it to Blackburn, but this is the world we live in now.
Well, absolutely. And of course, what we're going to get two bites at this, and which is always a good thing, because obviously you guys move so fast that there'll be something else to talk about by the time we come up again on the 15th of July. But we're going to be making a film using some of that footage, which will come out later in July. So we'll be putting that out to the audience who have registered today at the end of the month. So looking forward to that, and speaking to you again soon on that front, Ilyas.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. I think sharing footage of what we've done at the sites and the kind of customer experience we're looking to deliver.
Very, very good. Now, obviously, one of the things we wanted to start off in this first part of the program was to get a bit of a global update on all the things that have been happening in the business. And it's been a busy few years, hasn't it? Let's be frank. And Pace has been very impressive recently, despite the pandemic. And in many ways accelerated by it. So Ilyas, I think you were going to take us through some of the developments across the 10 international markets.
No, thanks, Dan, and thank you for the opportunity. I think I wanted to start off really to kind of share with the audience the EG Group journey to date. I think a lot of businesses have been through turmoil. A lot of sectors we've seen have, had to shut business. The segment we operate in terms of convenience stores, food service, we've been impacted as well, with less cars on the road. So naturally, people were not filling up as much and coming to our locations. But I think one of the areas which was a blessing, we remained open, given the assets are part of the strategic road network in a lot of markets. Our sites remained open, and we as a business, we've not stood still. I think sometimes when these challenging periods face everybody, they present opportunities, and like you touched on, I think for EG Group, we've been still kind of doing M&A. We've been looking at kind of acquisitions which add value to the overall group. We as a business today, as we sit here, we're in 10 countries. We have over a network of over 6,000 sites that we own and operate. We engage over 50,000 colleagues who are helping us kind of deliver the brand standards and the customer experience across all the markets we operate in. And for us as a business, brands is a kind of an inherent part of our DNA. We work with over 60 brands in the various markets. So in principle, we operate 3 kind of retail segments. And I think the illustration on the screen kind of reflects the breadth of brands we work with. So the 3 kind of business work streams are fuel retail. Then we've got the kind of grocery and merchandise or the convenience store piece. And then we have food service. So we as a business, these are the 3 kind of business work streams that generate revenue for us. And what's been interesting is the journey we've taken with our brand partners.
And maybe, Ilyas, let me just jump in there and just say, I mean, one of the reasons I was keen on you showing this slide was obviously it's a detailed slide, but I guess if we think back sort of, 20 years ago, we had operators who thought one size fits all globally would work. And then, we see what you're doing. And although many of us will be familiar with the, some of the partnerships in some markets, I think the sheer diversity and number of those brands, which are obviously tailored and appropriate in the 10 different markets that you operate in, is highly impressive.
Yeah, no, good point, Dan. I think what's important to remember, and I think when we started our international journey, a lot of our peers were kind of commenting, or the industry was kind of saying, some of these brands that EG work with in the UK, they're not going to travel well into Europe or in the US or Australia. And I think for us, we've been very clear. It's the business work streams, whether it's fuel retail, convenience, and food service. That's the blueprint. Today's kind of convenience customer, they're kind of looking for brands that resonate with them. And what we've really done is the model that we created in the UK, we've not moved away from that principle, but also we've not taken just the lineup of brands we work with in the UK. As you can see from this illustration, we work with a lot of brands in the various business work streams. And the reason for that, it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not about kind of, we've got a relationship with global brands, let's just take them around the world and try opening them up. What you've got to kind of have an appreciation for when you're a convenience retailer is customers in local markets have different choices, different brands that they resonate towards. And as a retailer, it's up to us to engage those brands and make sure the proposition is relevant for that particular market. And that's been the important learning for us. Yes, there are some brands which have a global presence. Yes, they also have global aspirations. When you've got the network we have in the 10 markets, some of these brands want to kind of explore the opportunities, and we work with them. But what we have to keep in mind is that the offer has to be relevant to the consumer. And that's, I think, what we've been able to demonstrate over the last few years in terms of our enterprise journey, Dan.
100%, yeah. So let's look at around the world a little bit, Ilyas, and tell us what EG Group are doing in the different markets. I mean, this is your biggest market, the USA, isn't it? 31 states.
For sure. So again, I think when we initially moved into the US, we acquired the Kroger kind of package of petrol convenience stores. What we've subsequently done since then is we've acquired Cumberland Farms. We've done a lot of kind of smaller network acquisitions out there. Today, as a business, like you say, we're across 31 states. We're on the East Coast, West Coast. We're in the kind of Midwest as well. And we have 1,800 sites. So there's not many businesses who have the kind of presence that we do in the US market. And it's all been about kind of working with the US team. So we call them EG America. But the leadership team out there and the people who work on our locations, again, that kind of emphasis on introducing food service, improving the range that we have in our convenience stores, and not just looking at it as a kind of a fuel dimension or fuel retail dimension, just kind of pushing the envelope with the customer experience. And we've been, quite proud of some of the kind of transformations in terms of the sites we've been able to kind of introduce. On this kind of location, you can see Taco John's and a Cinnabon kind of food offer. Coffee's big globally. But again, we've kind of developed a coffee offer for the American consumer. And again, what we're trying to do here is the American market try and kind of introduce those 3 business work streams I talked about in an effective manner.
Makes sense.
And then Australia, if we go to the other side of the world, so Asia Pacific, Australia, we did an acquisition from Woolworths, another big supermarket. So aside to Coles, that Woolworths are a big kind of supermarket business who were kind of looking at Amazon over their shoulder. So they wanted their investment priority kind of changed. They wanted to kind of look at their click and collect, the technology piece. They wanted to move out of the kind of forecourt convenience store space. What we've done in Australia, again, we've kind of started operating the sites in Australia with a view to investing in food service. So we've got partnerships with the likes of Oliver's, Cafe Aurore's, our kind of coffee to go and coffee shop kind of proposition in Australia. We've also started trialing with brand partners like Pizza Hut as well. So again, the blueprint's there. Convenience store-wise, again, moving it away from just long-dated items, snacks, drinks, to a more kind of a grocery convenience range. And Australia, again, is an important market for us that we kind of acquired, but what we wanted to do was make a statement in that marketplace in terms of the blueprint we operate. And then we come more closer to Europe. Back to Europe. So what we've seen with Europe as well, the whole kind of convenience store space and the interest from the supermarkets. I think what I would like to share is all these big box operators and supermarkets in every market, they are looking at the convenience space and how they are presenting themselves. So we've just kind of recently started a trial with Rewe, which is again one of the big supermarkets in Germany. There's Aral as well, who work with Rewe. But for us, it was a question of kind of exploring the opportunity. What does a Rewe Express convenience store look like? And alongside the kind of Rewe proposition in Germany, what we've also started doing is introducing brands like Backwork, which is a kind of a bakery lunchtime proposition, which German consumers like. We've also introduced Dish, which is a pretzel offer. So again, looking at what the local consumers want and delivering that. But it's all about investment. I think as a convenience retail operator, where the scale of business we are, what I said at the beginning, for us, it's not just about replicating the model we've got in the UK. It's about kind of bringing the right brands in the right spaces to improve that kind of consumer experience.
Absolutely. Just one question that's come in, which I think we just quickly answered, but EG staff are operating all of those different brands, aren't they, Ilias?
Yeah, so again, that's one of the big distinctions between ourselves and a lot of other operators. For us, all the brand partnerships we have, we own and operate. There are some markets like Germany and Italy where when we did the acquisition, we acquired not only company-owned, company-operated locations, there were some dealer operations as well. But what we've tried to do from our side is try and improve the standards of the locations. Again, when you're working in places like Italy, for example, the challenge is always you've got different dealers, you've got kind of a geographical spread. People have different kind of appetite to invest in the locations and present themselves. So what we've tried to do is put the disciplines in place with the dealers. Where dealer contracts were coming to an end and there was a lack of interest in continuing operating the sites, we've taken those sites over and we're running them ourselves. And what we've been doing is, again, overlaying our kind of business investment model, and we're seeing great results from it. I think customers, aside of the brands, they're looking for locations which present themselves in terms of good welfare. So a lot of customers now, whether it's washrooms, security, in terms of accessibility as well. You look at a market like Italy, they want attendant service. They want an attendant to fill up their vehicle. So we've introduced that kind of service in that market because that's what the customer demands. And it's making it available in a way that the customer feels that you're adding value. Any business that is perceived to be adding value will be successful. The day people think we're not doing that, then people will not be coming onto our locations.
I mean, the question on the chat was which is the most challenging location, and which probably you're not going to want to answer that. But one of the ways I'd probably answer it is the challenges are different in different markets, and you have to meet those challenges. Maybe that's
a business like EG. Yeah, for a business like ours, Dan, it's interesting because some of the challenges we've had to overcome are we've never operated a dealer network. So when we've done some of these acquisitions in Italy and Germany, all of a sudden it's a different business model where we're kind of, in essence, a landlord who owns the site, but somebody else is operating the location. So we've had to kind of revisit our business model. How can we kind of get the dealers to understand what we're wanting to do? We want to introduce food service. We want to kind of improve the convenience store proposition. So again, working with dealers has been something new that we've had to overcome as a business. And yeah, you're right. When we kind of reflect back on COVID, every country had a different experience. And, if we kind of just remember the media and the press coverage around Italy, for example, and how badly it was hit by COVID, everything was at a standstill. But you've got to continually motivate people, and the kind of £40 million investment we've done in our shared service centre and global headquarters is about supporting those markets and providing the assistance and guidance. And whether it's downtown Paris in France, I wanted to share this picture. A lot of people kind of have this perception EG Group operate 2-3 acre big locations with big drive-through kind of food service brands. We also have smaller operations, and I think credit to some of the brands we work with, in this case Carrefour, who've created a kind of a convenience store format for a smaller footprint. Some of the kind of Paris locations we operate, they tend to be on the ground floor of residential blocks. So again, that was a different business model that we've never kind of considered before or operated ourselves.
I just say, I mean, I'm a big fan of Carrefour and their success in convenience, particularly in really small locations in markets like Paris, Ilias. So I think you've been, again, you've got a great partner there, haven't you?
Yeah, for sure. And again, as you can see from the lineup of kind of the supermarket brands we're working with, it's a two-way process. It's about kind of them understanding the space we're operating in, the types of people that are walking through our doors, and making sure the range is suitable for that customer base. And Carrefour being a well-established business, they understand the consumer dynamic, and they've been working with us on the convenience side. Again,
it's a question that's come in, but you're more interested in the consumer. Are you more focused on the consumer than the vehicle in a way, in terms of how you develop the proposition? Do you think that's fair? There's a comment from somebody.
The way we have looked at business in terms of petrol forecourt convenience, there used to be an analogy, or it was well documented, that in the UK, typically a petrol forecourt operator, 60 to 70% of their gross profit came from fuel, and 20 to 30% came from the convenience store or the shop. This was the kind of traditional format or the delivery model. What we've been able to do is kind of come into this space and radically transform this. And what I mean by this is, if you look at the UK market, for example, a lot of our, or well over 2/3 of our gross profit is coming from non-fuel contribution.
Yeah.
So from the convenience store and food service, just, slightly less than 1/3 is coming from fuel retail. So in essence, what we've done is we've taken the traditional model of a petrol forecourt and turned it on its head, where the non-fuel is as equally or even more important nowadays than the type of fuel you're kind of offering. But that said, there's a whole kind of subject around future of fuel, what's going to happen with carbon fuels, given the kind of the whole global agenda around reducing our carbon footprint. We have to be aware of it. And, again, we'll talk a bit about electrification, or is it hydrogen? But we as a business, we have to adapt continually. We have to look at that. We've got over 100 locations now with EV charging points. I think regardless of what happens with the future of fuel, people will still need destinations. So whether they need to charge up, whether they need to kind of fill up, if it's hydrogen, for example, people will need a location. Now, if you look at electric charging, for example, even if it goes down to 10 minutes charge time, for example, in terms of fast charging, that individual or that customer will need a space to kind of, the dwell time is a lot longer than what's currently available. So customers will have to have a place where they can maybe, whilst the car's charging, have a coffee, answer their emails, maybe organize a meeting. So again, what we're seeing is this trend or shift towards kind of future of fuel, but we can talk a bit about this later on as well. And I think as we...
Yeah, and I get, sorry, Elias, I mean, another on the chat, I guess, given that your ability to be flexible depending on the challenge in different, the opportunity in different markets, I guess, as some markets move quicker into EVs, you'll flex to that, won't you? Just to
for sure.
Question that was raised.
We're kind of trialing electric charging in America just now. So California is one of the areas, markets where we're testing EV charging, home of Tesla. We want to see what the demand is in a market where predominantly customers, or even if you look at the top 10 vehicles that are sold in America, are the big SUVs, the big gas guzzlers, as they call them.
Yeah.
But what we're trialing is, even in that market, we're seeing is there traction towards electric. Across Europe as well, we've introduced electric charging points. So for us, regardless of what happens in the future, I think we are playing in that space, trying to explore what the future trends are going to be. That's not going to be determined by EG Group. That's going to be determined by the consumer. That's going to be determined by governments and the car manufacturers. And we've started seeing, historically, a lot of these car manufacturers, they resisted moving towards EV charging. But now it's quite common for us to see advertisements of hybrid cars or fully electric cars. So even the big German brands have moved towards that.
Yes. And we just saw delays, some more big grocery brands, the right partners in the right markets, So again,
in Benelux, we're working with Louis Delhaize, Cactus. So again, these are kind of brands which, again, the local consumers like and want. We've also kind of, through our Spa relationship in the UK, we've also trialed on some of the locations where Louis Delhaize didn't want to be. We've trialed the Spa kind of proposition as well. So it's about kind of mix and match and trying to get a feel. So one of the other challenges when you move into new markets, it's getting a feel for the space. But we're quite fortunate when we do acquisitions. We inherit a good, strong local team who work with us and kind of they understand the kind of business model we're wanting to deliver. And between us, we organize and coordinate those with brand partnerships. So I see we're moving towards the back home now. So things haven't stopped in the UK. It's still by far our most mature and one of our most profitable kind of markets. Especially when you look at the kind of food service side, how we're kind of growing that part of the business. And, you know, it's an amazing journey that we're on, given, you know, just a few years ago, we were kind of working with the likes of Starbucks, Greggs, and Subway. Today, if you look at the lineup of food service brands where we're kind of working with, you know, you've got the Krispy Kremes, you've got the Cinnabons, you've got the Burger Kings that, you know, we operate as well. So as a business, the UK continues, there's a massive demand from the consumer in creating destinations which allow multiple missions to be satisfied. And I think that's a very important kind of dynamic, which is also happening on a global level as well. Unfortunately, when you buy all these assets, there's no kind of magic wand where you could just transform the networks and have the right brand partnerships. There's a lot of trialing, there's a lot of kind of working together, collaborating. Sometimes the proposition they might have in the market might not be relevant for the transient location. So it's working with that brand partner and making sure, you know, it's relevant to the consumer.
I'm taking a risk in answering the questions for you, Elias, but one of the questions that came up is how do you choose the right partner? And I think what you've always said to me is you're looking for destination brands, somewhere that, you know, a brand that someone will take a 10-minute route out of their way to go to because they love that brand.
Yeah, so I think if we look at, we're all consumers of food service brands. That's the way of life. You've got to look at the different day parts. There's certain consumers who want a kind of a breakfast offering. There's a lot of consumers who want kind of a lunchtime fix or their meal sorted out. And then there's customers who want something for the evening. So the day parts are very important. Again, what you'll see with the lineup of brands, they've got to be complementary. So what you don't want to be doing is introducing too many kind of particular segmented brands. So you don't want too many coffee shop off propositions. You don't want kind of like multiple chicken brands. Just because chicken has become popular, it doesn't mean that you start introducing 2-3 chicken brands in there. It's about the brand lineup being complementary and working together for the day parts. And the other dynamic that's always very important is the pocket of the customer. What I always believe is you've got to have the value proposition as well as a kind of a premium offer as well. Because with running the types of locations we operate, a lot of people, they might want something cheap and cheerful, but they might also want to kind of treat themselves and buy something premium. We cannot determine that. We are creatures of habit. We like to access brands. And, you know, a lot of us, I think human nature, we'd be sick of having the same thing each day. So people want choice. So the kind of value proposition to premium proposition, there's got to be a good blend of that. And I think what's been interesting is the whole kind of shift towards drive-through as well. That's been a kind of a massive journey for a lot of businesses and a lot of brands to get their head around the drive-through proposition. And if you look at our business outside of the US, we're Starbucks' largest drive-through operator. If you look at a lot of our kind of brand partners, like even Greggs in the UK, which is a simple kind of fresh bakery proposition, and a lot of people would say a value proposition, they've introduced a kind of drive-through concept. This image always gives me a chuckle. When we were coming out of COVID last year, people, they'd been stuck in their homes in the UK for 2 months, over 2 months. But brands like KFC responded. You know, they worked very hard to reopen their businesses, and the psyche of the consumer was such that people were happy to queue up for 2 miles, 3 miles to get their KFC bucket fix or their favorite kind of sandwich. So the whole kind of transient drive-through proposition, in our opinion, has won. When you kind of compare it against the high street where people are scared to go into the town centers or the city centers, people are more comfortable driving out to transient locations where we've invested in our sites, we've invested in the kind of drive-through proposition. We're going to talk a bit about the technology aspect as well in the next segment, but all these things have to be hand in hand. And what we've seen is growth, and even after COVID and during COVID, we've seen growth in our business.
Absolutely, and that's a photo I took when I was queuing in my car for the local Shrewsbury Starbucks drive-through that you've built recently, by the way. This photo has been all over LinkedIn in the last few days. Any comments, Ilias, on Leon?
Yes, so this is the next chapter of our journey as a business as well. So again, we as a business predominantly have secured brand partnerships. We've always kind of been working with our brand partners, but an opportunity presented itself in the UK where there's a brand called Leon, which is working in the kind of naturally fast food space. And what I mean by that is there's a kind of a clear transparency in terms of sourcing products. So it's ethical sourcing, it's good quality ingredients. And I think, again, there's this global trend of people wanting to know what they're putting inside them. So I think in the UK, roughly a third of consumers are very interested in knowing about, the labeling and the ingredients. There's a big kind of increase in people having allergic reactions. If we kind of look back on prior to COVID, there was the big kind of incident with Pret and Natasha's law that's been kind of established. So there's going to be a big response in terms of customers wanting to know what they're putting inside them. And Leon, for us, was a brand we knew about for the last 5 or 6 years. They'd kind of grown their network up to about 60 restaurants, predominantly in London. So this is a brand that kind of has got its heritage in London, and it was looking to kind of go outside of London, which it started doing. We saw an opportunity to acquire this brand. So this is the first time where EG Group have invested in an actual food service brand ourselves. So we are Leon, we are kind of representing that brand in the consumer space. So one of the areas where we're kind of looking into is this image that you're seeing here, which is Leon have never done a drive-through. So for us, it's about creating that concept, delivering that kind of customer experience from a Leon brand perspective, and making naturally fast food accessible for consumers out there. So this site is in Yorkshire. So it will be opening up later on this year. And we're really looking forward to getting the learnings. So again, as an operator, we know a lot about running drive-throughs and the kind of commitment, the investment, the people side, the training, the systems that are needed. We have a lot of knowledge on this because of the other brand partnerships we have. We're going to look to leverage that with the first Leon drive-through done.
Very, very interesting. Now, before we go to the other images showing Asda on the move, talk a little bit about those forecourts, let's just bring in our other guests today. Craig Phillipson, Managing Director at Shopworks. Welcome, Craig. And also Neil Sutton, who's Corporate VP, EMEA Retail at NCR. Welcome, guys. Just to give Ilias a breather, from this round the world tour, which is pretty impressive, guys.
Yeah, it's super impressive. I mean, we admire EG very much, and as you know, just before Christmas, I was championing their Wolverhampton site before we were robbed by the Norwegians, sadly. But no, it's a very interesting business. Ilias, I have a quick question for you. Obviously, over time, you've championed other people's brands effectively. So you've worked with partners and built that together. That clearly in your experience, works a lot better than trying to develop your own in-house brands?
Yeah, so I think there's always pros and cons of which way you go. I think there's a lot of operators in the global markets we operate in who have their proprietary brands. In America, for example, Cumberland Farms in Massachusetts is well recognized for its own branded products. So we have our own commissary where we manufacture food products, which are then kind of distributed onto our own locations. There's other operators who've done that. And what we're saying is it's not the wrong, there's no wrong or right in this. It depends how you want to show yourself in the marketplace. So historically, we felt going with a branded partner, the benefits are it allows you to accelerate growth because they have a model, they've done all the homework, they know what works, they've done the research in terms of consumer habits, and they've developed a model that you work with and you can then accelerate your growth. I think sometimes, when you reflect and you kind of think, if we had to do all this ourselves, how much money, how much time would we have had to invest in to deliver the business model that we currently operate, especially in food service?
Sure.
Very, very good. And Neil, let me just bring you in for a quick comment as well. And we'll come to technology and also shopper insight for you, Craig, again after the Asda bit. But Neil, any quick comment before we have a look at the Asda part?
I was just enjoying your comment that you suggested Ilias should take a breath. I think as a strategic tech partner of EG Group, I think I don't even know that you guys know how to take a breath, do you? You are one of the most dynamic businesses out there, and you work at a fantastic speed, don't you? So
thank you, Neil, and thank you for all the support over the years. And I think even through the pandemic, I think what we've seen as businesses, I always say there's three types of business owners or business operators. You get the first type who kind of puts their head in the sand. It's last year. You talk to people and they were kind of saying, it's the end of the world as we know it. They stopped trading and it all kind of changed. But you look at brands like KFC, for example, as soon as we shut at the end of February, March and April was focused on reopening and how they could re-engage the customers and get their products and services out there. So the second type of kind of operator I always kind of classify is the one who says, I don't need to change anything. I'll just continue doing what I've been doing. And I just hope for the best and people will come back to me. I think, again, that's not the wrong, that's the wrong kind of approach or mental attitude to have. The third group, who I think are the most effective, are the ones who adapt and look at the kind of environment that they're operating in. And, just simple things. If we look at delivery, prior to COVID, it was kind of bubbling along around the 10% mark on average. COVID hits, 100% of your business kind of shifted in food service, especially towards kind of having a delivery provision. Now, if you had not embraced delivery, if you'd not worked with your technology partners, if they'd not done the integrations, then you were stuck because you'd be in the first or second group, and it'd be a very challenging trading period. But as part of that, kind of being that third mover and shaker in the markets, if you've kind of created those relationships with your suppliers, with your brand partners, then you can respond effectively even in times of crisis as well. And I think it just shows, as we come out of COVID, the resilience of certain business models and how effective they've been. So they were being recognized as being successful prior to COVID, but what I think coming out of COVID has actually shown is these business models are very resilient and they set up for the future as well.
Now, I'm tearing up the script slightly, but let's just flash through those Asda picks, just to remind everybody of what else is going on in the UK with Asda on the move, and let's just go through them quite quickly, just to remind.
Given we've just completed the kind of CMA process, which in the UK is all about kind of getting competition clearance. I was in a position to kind of just share some of the opportunities that we're looking to kind of explore in the UK. So we've been working with Asda. So those of you who don't know Asda, they were previously owned by Walmart, who retained a minority shareholding in the business, but they're one of the top 4 supermarkets in the UK. The other 3 supermarkets, they've kind of had a foray into convenience, and they've developed kind of convenience retail formats. Asda, unfortunately, had not done so, but even prior to our shareholders looking to buy Asda, what we had started exploring with them was a convenience store format, which has been branded Asda on the Move. So we've created this concept. We're currently in 5 locations in the Midlands in the UK. What the plan is now, we're kind of accelerating the rollout of the Asda on the Move concept. We've got a lot of learning. So again, Asda, because they've not worked in this space, and like any supermarket, they're very good at shifting big pallets of goods around the country, delivering it to big locations, big stores. Now you're all of a sudden working in a convenience space where you need to kind of break down and put cages together. So it could be single items, it could be smaller kind of cases. And they've got to adapt. The systems have got to adapt. The processes have got to adapt as well. So there's been a whole lot of learning on our side about what Asda can present to us or provide us. And there's a whole set of learning for Asda in developing their convenience concept. The other stuff where we're exploring with Asda, and again, a lot of market research in terms of the supermarkets, and we've seen some of the recent kind of commitments, likes of Morrison, for example. They've created a kind of an in-store food service concept. It's proprietary branded, and they've kind of introduced that in terms of like a food court proposition. But this, again, where supermarkets have been operating big boxes, there's a lot of space in these places. What will attract the future consumer? So again, we have a slight advantage in terms of some of the food service brands we work with. There is research which kind of demonstrates that a lot of the Asda consumers will be very interested in accessing these food service brands when they go to do their weekly shop. I think the weekly shop is still something that people do, and it's not something that's going to go away. So the supermarkets have their place, but what we're trying to do is some of the disciplines around convenience, how we're managing store space in terms of SKUs, how we range. I think there'll be a big, massive kind of learning curve on both ends from the supermarket experience in terms of the convenience store format, and likewise in terms of how Asda will kind of present itself in the future. So, you'll be able to see a lot of some of the partner brands we work with being delivered in Asda supermarket locations. And the other piece that we're kind of looking at is how we can deliver some of the economies of scale by doing the combined purchasing and logistics of the fuel offer. So a lot of supermarkets, they retail fuel. Asda is no different to that. What we're looking to do is kind of, EG have committed to kind of purchasing the Asda forecourts. And as part of that exercise, we'll be looking to kind of leverage the buying, the logistics, as I said. Again, the whole systems piece around how we're going to kind of manage fuel retail as well in the future.
Now, Craig, I know you're a big fan of the on the move format. Just thinking about that one part of the of discussion we've just had. How do you see that from a consumer perspective?
I think it's really interesting. And Ilyas, just to try and paraphrase what you just said, you're trying to take your on the move concept and make it slightly larger and expand it into a supermarket footprint.
Yeah, so again, I think the days have gone where people just want to pick up, like I said earlier, long dated items, snacks, chocolates, drinks. Today's consumer, when they walk through that convenience store door, they want to buy, they might want to do a top-up shop for the meal in the evening. Yeah. They might have forgotten to buy some ingredients. It could be household goods. It could be even simple things like, we've all got these dreaded things in our pockets. You go somewhere and you've forgotten your charger. So now people are coming onto our locations to pick up mobile accessories. Vaping is a big kind of piece in the UK, where people not only want to buy the vaping fluid, but if you think about our locations, they're open 24/7. So if your unit breaks down, a lot of the shops on the high street or in the town centre, they're closed in the evening. So even like vaping products and accessories, people are wanting to buy from our locations. There's been a massive shift in terms of car washing. So with the anti-slavery laws that have been passed, a lot of the hand car washes have kind of closed down, but that created a vacuum in terms of people wanting to wash their cars. So car washes have become fashionable. So what you kind of see is this whole kind of concept about the convenience store improving the range. It extends into outside onto the forecourt as well. We retail now AdBlue because a lot of the car manufacturers have introduced that as a fuel additive. So again, the business has to evolve and embrace these changes and make sure that we're extending the range of products and services in line with the consumer demand.
Now, Neil, let me bring you in on technology, because I think we've got to cover this piece, So just, I guess, stepping back a bit and thinking about the, retailers adapting their space and, their businesses to a post-lockdown retail landscape. I mean, what's the role of technology? And I guess technology has a key role, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ilias described it quite well, didn't he, really? But I think, what you see from any one of those pictures, especially the larger formats, is there's a lot going on in a site, isn't there? Lots of different things. So that's one part. And the second part is you have a lot of different technology elements going on, don't you? People have done a lot of application development in response to, what's happened over the last year and a half, yeah? So what you see is that if you then look at some of the, say, legacy things that have gone on in a site, you end up with a lot of complexity. So on the one hand, technology is good. On the other hand, technology can be bad in some ways. So really, I think the focus on technology moving forward in this scenario that Ilias has so wonderfully described is both how do you drive out the complexity, look at a platform strategy that makes it super efficient to operate these sites, but also most importantly supports the experience that wants to be delivered. If somebody's going there as a destination, you arguably want fuel, QSR, and the convenience retailing to be an integrated experience. So I think if you take a platform approach, it can enable that. If you look at the new techniques and new technologies that help you drive out the complexity, then you can deliver real efficiency. And ultimately, then finally, is just you can try some different things to differentiate. And I think that's what Ilias has tried to point out, is through the brands and the combination of brands, you can really try and differentiate. And obviously differentiation comes in both, not just the brands, but also the experience. I'm praying for the day I can drive in, fill up my car, but as soon as I drive in, my coffee's already ordered inside so that I don't have to wait in the queue. Yeah. That for me is differentiation through experience, and I would go out of my way because I hate standing in the queue, not just for paying for fuel, but then for a coffee. And technology can and does enable that, and can enable it at scale. And if you can do that at scale in a CFR type scenario, then I think there's a wonderful opportunity to try some of these things. Yeah.
Neil, can I ask you a question on that, and Ilias as well? That obviously, we're I think lucky. I mean, lots of Shopworks customers operate in attended markets. So, people can turn up to the forecourt, they get their fuel and they pay and they leave. Because often the forecourt is operated by a different dealer to the shop. And there's no requirement to actually go into the shop unless you've got a destination or a planned purchase. Now, what was really interesting was hearing you talk about, an app that encourages you then to either use the convenience store or go in to pick up your coffee. Can you talk a bit more about that? Because I know that's super interesting. in terms of converting people who are stopping for fuel into shop or food service customers?
Yeah. So I think when we look at the consumers that come onto the forecourt, I mentioned coffee being a kind of a category which is very important. Coffee in the UK and some of the other markets, I think I touched on the US experience we saw. People want that coffee fix. So when they're filling up, they want to make sure that they've got a kind of a hot beverage. Now even the machines are sophisticated; they can even do the cold versions of the drinks as well. So as the technology evolves, we're kind of seeing the product offering kind of being extended, and there's a richer choice for the consumer. But what tends to happen is you're filling up, and you might have kind of had this notion that I'll just fill up and I'll go to my meeting. This is where some of the kind of how you present yourself. So I always say a lot of the time, we are just an umbrella of our partner brands. I don't think necessarily people see EG Group and then they'll just come onto our location. I think when they're driving around, they see all the partner brands. So when they see one of our totems, they'll see all the kind of offerings that are available. And I think EG Group has created a reputation for itself in terms of the brand lineup. So I think it's the sum of all the parts or all the different brands we operate. So a customer who might have just been thinking, I need to fill up or I need to have a kind of a comfort break, all of a sudden ends up buying their lunch, buying a coffee for themselves. So what you're doing is it's transforming something which was seen as a distressed purchase to one of choice, where somebody is kind of, you're conditioning the consumer to say, actually, you've got this need, but you can actually fulfill multiple needs by coming onto our location. And I think that's where having that kind of different brand proposition for different parts of the day, different kind of value propositions to premium, that's where it all kind of works together. And I think the magic is in bringing all that together.
Mm-hmm. Any response, Craig, on that?
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And lots of the stuff that we do looks at how the customer approaches that journey from, half a mile away to the pole sign onto the forecourt, and what kind of hints and triggers you need to deliver to them to get them through the shop door. Because it's all right having your house of brands and your offer, but what inspires them to go, actually, I'm not just going to pay and go. I'm going to pay for my fuel because I have to outside in lots of markets, and then I'm going to go in and get a coffee or go to the loo, or we're obviously seeing lots of technology starting to enable that kind of trigger to get people off the forecourt into the store where they don't have to, where they don't have to go in to pay, because it's obviously easier when they do have to. But
if we talk quickly about digital signage, for example, for many years, the cost of that technology was too overbearing for a lot of retailers. But as screens have become cheaper, people are kind of now looking at digital screens with a view. They are your advertising hoardings. If we look at the typical gas station or petrol forecourt, you have all these stickers and promotional kind of posters. There's a massive opportunity in terms of reducing all that clutter from the window and digitalizing it and presenting it to the consumer. So a typical dwell time when you're filling up your car, you're looking at 4 to 10 minutes, depending on what vehicle you've got. So what the customer typically does is the behavior is they're looking around. So now if you can engage them through digital signage and condition them about some of the offer inside the store, so it could be anything around the shop or what's on promotion. It could be about educating them about some of the kind of deals or the kind of food offerings that are in there. I think in a COVID, post-COVID world, also kind of putting customer messages out there. All these kind of elements, the technology is now there and it's affordable for retailers to kind of put in place to engage the consumer a lot more effectively. I think that's the opportunity that people have got to seize.
Neil, last we talked about technology. I can't not give you a comment quickly.
Well, I think Elias has rightly pointed out that I guess what we see is that the experience really matters, but also people want different experiences because they go into stores for different reasons. Yes, I mean, I kind of think about it in terms of missions, and the challenge from the site point of view is how those missions are designed for and dealt with, so that there isn't conflict and there isn't unnecessary friction. And I still think there's opportunities to make it easier and simpler and more integrated, I think, as Elias has mentioned. And so we spend a lot of time, working with various customers on the design elements and looking at why is somebody actually in a store? Yeah, what are they really trying to do? And how do we all make sure that we serve both the fuel customer who wants to pay his £30 and run in and run out, metaphorically speaking, yes, versus the person who wants to come in and make a £60 shop, for example, or somebody who then wants to combine that with buying takeout food. So, those all have different missions, and technology can support that choice, but also technology needs to support, I believe, and I think NCR believes in both a platform that then enables us to allow for inclusion. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to come up with an answer for somebody with their mobile phone and an app. Yeah, but you think of the range of people coming onto one of those sites, Elias. You have some very broad demographics, and we need to be inclusive in the experience, don't we?
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the brand partners, I think the technology piece up till now has been in silos. So you've got the kind of fuel brands kind of developing an app which allows you to pay for the fuel. You don't need to go into the shop to pay. You look at the food service brands, massive push on loyalty and just kind of promoting their wares. Again, that's business. That's the way technology has evolved. But I think the smart kind of operators and brands will be those which will be kind of looking to cross-sell across the business work streams, where you'll be able to link fuel with the non-fuel kind of proposition and measure loyalty and look at the spend behavior. Up till now, it's all been about kind of people being recognized as transactions. So you buy fuel and that's a transaction. You buy coffee, that's a transaction. There's no way of kind of weaving it all together to build a picture of that consumer journey or the habit
totally agree.
At the site level. And
I totally agree. I think that's why, it's great that I think we both have the same idea, the same vision about how it can evolve to deliver that great experience through looking at those integration points and the friction points. And as you said, loyalty takes on a very different role, doesn't it, in the future, which is, exactly how NCR sees how it needs to invest in supporting clients like EG Group in that and trying to keep up with you. So I think it makes for a very interesting customer experience in the future, Dan.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I've tried to keep up, talking about keeping up. I mean, I've tried to keep up with the questions, and I'm sorry for the 12 people that I haven't got to on that. One of the last one, though, which helps me with the segue into the last point, was from Kiran Tanya White. Elias, what motivates you? What makes you tick? And I'm kind of going to answer that a little bit because we're going to bring up the last picture, aren't we, Nick? For you to answer that question, Elias.
Yeah, I think what motivates us, I think aside of the business being successful and having a fantastic team of people who work for us, I think the business we operate or the retail space we operate in, we touch a lot of communities. So our 6,000 sites are the kind of local convenience destination for a lot of people around the world. And I think what we try and do through the investment on our sites and the facilities, just simple things like making female customers and elderly feel safe to come in the evening to shop at our location. So having front of store parking, having a lot of kind of lighting and security cameras. So making people safe so that they kind of feel comfortable, even if it's at night, they can come and visit one of our locations. And then the other side of it, which is all around the kind of environmental piece I touched on, we've kind of invested in kind of EV chargers, looking at, you know, how we can improve our carbon footprint. Yeah, it's a starting point at this moment in time, but whatever happens in terms of the future of fuel, we are very keenly looking at that from an environmental perspective. But that's not the only thing. When you look at environmental initiatives, we spent millions in looking at putting solar panels on the roofs of our buildings. If you look at the designs of our stores, it's done in a way where we can implement solar panels. We've been reusing rainwater for some of our kind of site facilities. So whether it's reusing it in the washroom, etc., we've implemented that. We've done LED lighting, the whole piece around kind of recycling, packaging. A lot of our brand partners, there's this shift towards moving away from plastic. So kind of single-use kind of consumable items, making sure we're kind of embracing that and we're investing in that. And then it's all about that kind of customer experience and how you're seen to be adding value. And then there's that bit about giving back to the community. I think we as a business, like a lot of businesses out there and a lot of people, we've all been touched in some way by COVID. So, you know, massive piece around kind of giving out free coffees to frontline workers. I think we did over 500,000 cups globally. It wasn't just limited to the UK. We did this in all our markets. In America, for example, the veterans, we kind of supported initiatives there where people were coming back, they've got disabilities, etc. How can we support them living in the communities where our sites are? There were the bushfires and then the subsequent flooding in Australia. So again, our colleagues in Australia, there was a need to kind of address and support communities in those locations. And then you look at markets in Europe where in the Netherlands, we worked with Essel where we were giving free fuel to emergency services. So a whole raft of kind of initiatives more closer to kind of where our head office is in Blackburn. We operated a food hub with the local authority. Some of our Starbucks opened up as kind of, as the businesses were shut for the 2 months. We let those spaces be used for putting food packages together for hospital workers. And then there's a financial contribution piece as well, where NHS, so in the UK, the health service, there was a lot of pressure on them and there was a lot of demand in terms of people helping out. But what was very interesting, and I think will be one of the big lessons from COVID, everyone chipped in, everyone kind of from different backgrounds, different perspectives, kind of did their bit in terms of helping one another. And I think when you're a company like EG Group, those are some of the motivations when you wake up in the morning and you're kind of coming to work. It's some of this softer stuff and the impact you have at the local level, which motivates you to go into work. I think Neil touched on it. We're kind of very proactive, and it's a very busy environment. But you've always got to kind of take the time out and measure yourself in terms of the impact you're having in the locality and the way you're helping people move forward and come out of this. And I think as we come out of as kind of there's the easing, or as we come out of COVID, people will need a lot of support. We have invested in becoming a training provider ourselves. So what we are doing is young people who are leaving school and college, we are putting them, we have big finance department. So we are one of the, I think we are the only employer at this moment in time who is accredited to deliver AAT training, for example, to get people onto the kind of financial accountancy ladder. So in a period where people are kind of looking at university education and the costs behind it, what we have done as an employer is said, why don't we take some of these young people, we put them through the program, and by the age of 22, 23, hopefully they will be qualified accountants. So what they've been doing is they've been earning whilst they've been learning as well. They've got their qualifications. And from our perspective, it's a good use of our resources, because we want people, we're a global business. We want to kind of take on people with the hunger, the desire, and support them. And if we can do that through initiatives like training, a lot of our brand partners, they offer, fantastic training programs. Some of our technology partners, in terms of what they develop, is continually evolving. And I think you've got to kind of work with them. And these are the kind of positive energies or the karma that excite me on a day-to-day basis.
Well said, Ilias. And I'm just last comment from me in terms of the impact on the northwest of the UK in terms of high value jobs, opportunities for young people. It's just phenomenal, I think, what EG Group have achieved. So congratulations to that. Let me just thank everybody individually. We need to wrap up now, unfortunately, although we could go on, couldn't we? There's so much to discuss. Craig Phillipson, MD at Shopworks, thanks very much for joining us. And Neil Sutton, Corporate VP EMEA with NCR Retail. Thank you very much. And of course, Ilias Munshi, thank you sorry we couldn't be there with you, but we're making the film, and we'll be covering EG Group some more over the next few weeks, won't we? But thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to hosting you, Dan. Hopefully the summer will kind of stretch out into the next few weeks. So we have very short summers up north, so you've got to time it, yeah?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's often raining, isn't it? But we'll make sure we come when the sun's shining. Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Great. Well, just closing up before we finish, just to let you know that just continuing the sort of strategic debate on the Global C-Store Focus website, we're just something for the weekend perhaps to read, is a very interesting feature by a good friend of mine, John Arnold, who's been a lot of experience in the big multiples for John Lewis Partnership, Sainsbury's, 30 years experience in grocery and convenience and forecourt retailing. So he's written an interesting article, which we've just put on our website called UK Food and Grocery Market Adapting to a Post-Lockdown World. So you might want to give that a read over the weekend that's coming up. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us. And thank you again to EG Group, NCR and Shopworks for making it a really interesting episode. Look forward to next time. Good afternoon.